Oh, hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of First Canada Live. It is 2005. Happy New Year. Happy new season. It's time to talk about Reefscape. I'm your host, Karthik Apathy, and we are here for a great show. 2025. I was just throwing it back a little bit here, just kind of playing around right here. Thanks for the catch right there. Hey, folks, it's going to be a great episode. But at first, it is important as Canadians to recognize the land of which we are a part. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging, of all the land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge this land of a respect for the indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. The indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land before the arrival of settler peoples until today. But most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poorer treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who called Canada home long before it was given this name. This history is something that everyone is affected by. We are all treaty people here in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. All right, folks, we are ready for a good show. And to get us started here, before we start talking about Reefscape, I want to introduce my co-host from Team 6135 and the First Canada Youth Council, that's 6135 Arctos. It's Ren. Hey, Ren, how's it going?
I'm feeling fantastic. Reefscape is such a cool game, and trust me, the panelists are the most cool people you've ever met. So this is going to be a fantastic episode.
We're just gonna dive right in. So, Ren, what was it like Saturday morning? What was it like to
It was
see the
like,
game?
so I did my kickoff with my team as well as Runnymede, Humberside, and I believe Iron Bears. So some other Toronto teams. We all gathered at Runnymede Collegiate, and I was like vibrating with excitement as Mark Rober, not Mark Rober, I think it was as Mark Rober fell into the tank and the game animation started playing. There was a lot of screaming, partly from me, possibly from other people on my team, but I know I was screaming a little bit because it just looked like so cool. Like I was just amazed at like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the next 3 months of my life.
It's uh it's exciting. Reefscape's exciting. There's a lot going on, and we're going to be talking about everything to do with Reefscape, a deep dive under the sea as we explain this game, try and figure it all out, the nooks and crannies, and talk about what's happening, brainstorming all the things. So tonight, if you have any questions for us, you can drop them in the Twitch chat. We will try our best to answer them on air. We've got a great group of panelists, so that will be fabulous as they try and answer questions. So please toss your questions in there. We love it to be interactive. But also remember, folks, we're here to have some fun and celebrate excellence in our community. So let's keep the chat meaningful and mindful of gracious professionalism at all times. And when we talk about gracious professionalism, it ties into wellness as well. And so, Ren, I'd love for you to walk us through what the Youth Council and yourself have come up with for today's wellness moment.
So, for today's wellness moment, I want to talk about journaling. Personally, I live a very busy life, and to take the time to sit down with my thoughts with a pen and a paper is really meaningful for me. And I think just if you can take the time in your day to sit down, write out some thoughts, maybe how you're feeling, maybe some goals, just take a break for yourself. Don't look at a screen, don't need to talk to anyone, just you. I also find it fun to look back on what I've written just because I can see kind of the person that wrote that. And it really has let me like connect more with like how I'm feeling and lets me laugh if I wrote down something that I may have forgotten.
Ren, that's such great advice. The other cool thing about journaling is that I did some of it when I was your age, and it is so cool to look back at those things, like 20 years later and just be like, wow, wow, 25 years later, maybe. Oh, geez, I'm old. I'm old. But it's just like to look back and be like, oh, wow, that's what was going through my head back then. And sometimes it's like you don't even recognize the person that you used to be, and other times it's like, oh yeah, that is who. It's neat. So keep those, save them. Do do
I
you do
definitely
you,
will.
do you hand journal or do you type?
So I like hand journaling more. When I get busy, I sometimes need to like it's hard to pull out the journal, so like I'll write like a few things.
Yeah.
Something that's also fun is like I have my own little Instagram account where I can just like put a photo and like write what I'm feeling, and then it's really fun. Like because Instagram will like remind you of like oh you did this
Yeah,
a year
yeah,
ago,
yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
That's almost like the modern version of scrapbooking in a certain way, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's also just like depending on what you do, you can always share it with people or keep it for yourself. And it's, I don't know, you're on Instagram already. So
Yeah.
I guess it's nice to see.
All right, folks. Before we start talking about Reefscape, we have like 8 million news updates to go through, just various sorts of things. I know we have audience from around the world today. A lot of this stuff is First Canada specific, but hey, maybe you'll learn something along the way. Who even knows? Teams. Vouchers. Every single team, FRC team, received a whole whack load of vouchers. Especially if you were teams who opted out of either the kit apart drive base or the black tote. If you opted out of the kit apart drive base, you have a $450 Andy Mark voucher. And if you opted out of the black tote, you have a $125 Andy Mark voucher and a $125 Rev voucher. For Canadian teams, Andy Mark vouchers can be redeemed at Andy Mark in the US or at Studica here in Canada. Rev vouchers can be redeemed at revrobotics.ca. So keep that in mind. Uh, if you were one of the 8 million teams who's thinking of building an elevator right now, you're probably like, oh, yeah, I need some constant force springs. Vulcan has donated 6 constant force springs to every single team. There's a voucher. You just got to go use it and take it. You're like, hey, I don't want to print my own April tags and they cost $250 to buy from AndyMark. Doesn't matter. Swift Robotics has a voucher code for a full set of April tags that you can get. So get your voucher codes, redeem them. Don't give away free money, people. Never give away free money. That's like Karthik's #1 rule. So that's right there. Hey, Ren, are you familiar with the First Canada scholarships?
Yeah, they're open right now, right?
They are certainly open with many deadlines coming up at the end of this month. Scholarships such as the Don Bosey Leadership and Innovations Award, or the Canadian Women in STEM Award, or the First Canada Indigenous Scholarship. All the details on these scholarships are available at firstroboticscanada.org/scholarships. Link is going in chat. It's right there. Folks, apply, apply, apply. You'd be shocked at how few people apply for scholarships, and there's money there. And even if you don't get one, we chase perfection, hoping to catch excellence along the way. And by doing that application, you'll be more ready for some of your university applications, job applications, cover letters. Save that application and then, just file it away as a Google Doc and then you can use it for all sorts of other things. So there we go. Um, oh my goodness. Hey, teams out there in Ontario or across Canada, are you interested in running a summer camp this summer? A First Canada summer camp? Guess what? First Canada has grants which would pay for your entire summer camps, including 10 Lego kits, 12 Lego kits. It's a fabulous deal, a great way to get involved in the community, fundraise, build leadership opportunities, and train the future students of your FRC or FTC team. So if you are interested, we got information online. There's going to be a Zoom session. Link is going in chat, but it's firstroboticscanada.org/summercamp/innovation. You can see where my second monitor is because that's what I'm pointing at. I keep pointing over there, and it's like, where is he pointing? It's like I'm pointing at my second monitor where the chat is. That's where I can see all the great things that are in there. Uh, are you interested in a First Canada Bronze safety badge, Ren?
I am definitely interested. That would look so cool.
Well, if you go to the link that's going in chat, you can take the First Canada Safety Badge quiz. And if you get, I think it's over 80%, maybe it's over 90%, you can print out a code or just save it on your phone and show it at the swag table at any First Canada event and any First Canada FRC district event, and you'll get your badge. And you can even get a hug from Swaggy P, Paul Keenan. That's what's happening right there.
I
So
think that is worth 10 times more than
yeah,
a badge, but I
that
will also take the badge.
just a full disclaimer, please don't hug Paul without him approving it. I just say these things to cause trouble for Paul because that's kind of what I do. That's what friends do. We friends. All my friends on the show today, they'll tell you about it, what friendship is like with Karthik. Also, Ren, First Canada Live, schedule time. So guess what? Guess when our next episode is, Ren?
It's gonna be next week.
We are back next week. That's right, back-to-back weeks. And we are going to be doing the global unveiling of the 118 Every Bot. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the show. Jenna K is here. Jenna K will be back next week with friends, and we're going to be unveiling the Every Bot, which is always a highlight of the year here. And then after that, we will be back at the end of February doing a wrap up of FTC and FLL provincials. Also, we'll be chatting with our head reps, some of our head reps. Actually, I haven't invited them yet. I meant to text the group chat, but I will later to invite them on. We'll talk to Rishi about it later on.
Yeah.
to kind of go over game rules and just kind of what to expect. And then when
Uh,
we get into the competition season for FRC, sorry, Ren, I got so much to say. I'm so excited. No, no, no. When we get into competition season, we'll be here every single week. Tuesday afterwards, we're going to be doing wrap ups of the show, of the week's events, talking strategy, talking about everything that happened. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a good time. But to figure everything out, subscribe, turn on notifications on whatever channels. Subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple Music if you want to listen to us on a podcast, in the car, on the way to work, on the streetcar. Red, are you a streetcar person to get to school or subway?
I'm a subway person, a bus
All
and then a
right.
subway.
There you go, bus and subway. There's nothing better. You listen to First Canada Live while you're on there or whatever. People will be
For
like,
sure.
who's that cool kid riding the rocket? I wonder what they're listening to, And then they'll just be like, I'm listening to myself on First Canada Live, is what they're saying.
Yeah, I just all I want to hear is just, just me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just
All
gonna
right.
say this sounds
Yes.
super exciting, and I like personally, I'm so excited to see the Everybot. Like that's I'm like
Yes.
like it's on my calendar to come
Well,
watch next
well, guess
week's.
what, Ren? In just a few minutes, you could ask Jenna Kay about it. Maybe she'll give us a sneak preview. Maybe she probably won't. She probably won't. But we could ask, hey, can't get what you don't ask for. Other
Mm.
announcements. First Canada alumni. Hey, you want to stay in touch with us? Go to firstroboticscanada.org/alumni to sign up for our alumni lists and the such. And I'm throwing Julie off in chat right now because I'm going out of order. Sorry about that. But don't forget to join the Ontario Team Slack. The Team Slack, that's where you can find out information. You need to figure out where to buy CPVC pipe. You're struggling with that. Hey, there's tips in the Slack. The Slack is the place to go. You want to buy aluminum tubes for cheap? Slack knows where to do it. So join up in that Slack group. And yes, alumni, go to firstroboticscanada.org/alumni to sign up for our alumni list. Ren, it's almost time that you'll be able to sign up there because, I know, don't worry, you got a full season. I'm not trying to end your season early, but, and
Yeah.
Ren, we have something big planned for provincials. We haven't announced it yet, but we're happy. We have a big alumni thing happening at provincials. Maybe we'll announce it next week. Maybe we'll announce it next
Oh,
week. Okay, but
that's
it's gonna be
cool.
good. Speaking of alumni, First Canada Alumni Corner. The next topic, which will be at the end of January, is securing internships and co-op opportunities during your academic journey. So if you go to firstroboticscanada.org/alumni corner, you can sign up to be notified when the next episode will be, but that sounds like a really good one. And all the past episodes are on our YouTube channel. So subscribe, like, click, do all the things. There's so many links going into chat right now. We're blazing right here. Okay. All right. We're over with the news, folks. Everyone from around the world who's been like, oh, they're just talking about Canada. Okay. We're going to talk about Reefscape now. We're going to talk about Reefscape, but we're going to do it in just a moment after a word from one of our sponsors, TD SYNNEX.
TD SYNNEX connects and empowers a vibrant, expansive ecosystem of innovative companies that create solutions for increasingly complex business challenges. We help more than 150,000 customers maximize the value of IT investments, achieve business outcomes, and unlock growth opportunities. By simplifying complexity for our vendors and customers, allowing new technologies to be effortlessly adopted. With 22,000 of the IT industry's best and brightest, we passionately deliver compelling technology that enhances the way we work, play, and live. As the intense pace of the IT marketplace continues to accelerate, we will remain at the center, orchestrating essential solutions, delivering vital, high-growth technologies, and working to sustain the world around us. With 50 years of success at our backs, we continue to evolve and improve the way we support our partners. We believe anyone can achieve great outcomes with technology, and TD SYNNEX is proud to make that happen every day.
Well, thank you, TD SYNNEX. Well, we couldn't do what we do here at First Canada without all of their support. All right, Ren, you ready for this? You've been telling us that this panel is amazing, right?
Yeah, of course.
Well, let's figure out who's going to be here. First off, we have first alum from Team 3184, Blaze Robotics from Burnsville, Minnesota, and current mentor of Team 118, the Robonauts, and one of the leads of the Everybot. It's Jenna K. Firch. What up, Jenna?
Hello, excited to be here yet again.
Thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back. Every year you come on and it's like you're close to getting Canadian citizenship at this point. You are like on the verge. This started before you
Mhm.
believed that Canada actually existed as a country, and now, it's like you're right here. You're one of the regulars.
Canada is alive, it's real, and I love it, and I wish I was up there with y'all. So
All
honored that
right.
you're
Well, hey.
having a Texan.
Well, hey, and we're gonna start planning this. We're starting to plan the STEMathon pretty soon. So that's right up your jam. You're there every year. So we'll
I
see.
will be there.
Speaking of the STEMathon, one of our STEMathon planning committee members, a First Canada alum and mentor of Team 2056 OP Robotics, First Canada MC and game announcer, and one of the alumni of the First Canada Youth Council, it's superstar Emily Forrester. How's it going, Emily?
Good. How are you?
Okay, Emily, I've got one big question for you because right
Oh
after the
dear.
show, you know what I'm doing right after the show?
What are you
I'm
doing?
going to watch the new episode of Skeleton Crew, the Star Wars show. And so, Emily, have you caught up on Skeleton Crew yet
No,
so we
I am
can
not
talk?
caught up.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
getting
So
there.
you
I'm
you're just keeping our friendship on pause so we can't
no,
talk about our shared interests. I see how it is. Jenna, have you been
there,
watching Skeleton Crew?
I haven't, but you guys make it sound really
Oh.
exciting.
It's
Sorry.
a Star Wars show, but it's basically the Goonies in the Star Wars universe. So it's like
This sounds
my,
amazing.
my favorite things ever. And there's this little guy, his name is Neil, and he's like an elephant dude, and he's the most adorable little guy. Neil's the
Okay.
best. I will
All right.
I will I will like if any Sith come near Neil, I will develop the Force to protect Neil. I love Neil so much.
Nice.
My people in general love elephants, and so I'm very protective of Neil. He's
Elephants are
good here.
great.
Elephants are good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, one of my friends from high school was named Neil, who's actually married to Ren's cousin.
Yeah, that was very
Yeah,
fun to find out.
yeah.
But
Just fun
Karthik, would it
facts.
surprise you if I told you I've never seen a Star Wars film? Like ever.
Oh. Okay, well,
Whoa.
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 guess what, Ren? I think this should be a youth council meeting, maybe. We're just gonna watch a Star Wars movie or whatever.
Oh,
That's amazing right there. All right, thank you. All right, and now we still got more guests to introduce. Okay. First Canada alum of Team 4252 Cardinal Robotics and former mentor of Team Dave 3683. 1310 Runnymede Robotics. There's a whole list of teams right here that he's been on. I believe won a world championship with Beaverworks, was on 1114. Now the drive coach for Team 1241 Theory 6 from Mississauga, Rishi Jotsingani.
Hey Karthik, hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm surprised you could write all the teams down on the
Yeah,
list.
no, it's a lot. It's a lot. Hey,
Yeah.
Rishi, you know what the best part of having you on the show is? Because
What
I
is that?
look in chat. You know who I see in chat? I see Samosa Mom in
Of
chat.
course, the best
Yes.
mom ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I have to say second best mom.
Sorry,
My mom
I'm-
is pretty good. The aunties they've met each other, they know each other, they have to respect, they're both pretty awesome. So it
100%.
is good. All right. Hey, you got a shout out right there. Base.
Base. Yeah.
And finally, First Canada alum, current mentor and drive coach of Team 4946, the Alpha Dogs FTC head referee, winner of the Volunteer Award last year at the Provincial Championship for having that dog in him and doing it doggy style. It is Cole Sear.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, buddy. How's it going, Cole?
It's pretty good. I'm just I'm upset I can't have the roster of teams that I've been on, but I try to keep it loyal, like a
Yeah,
dog,
yeah.
right?
There you go.
I
Exactly.
can help you with
Exactly.
that.
But Cole,
Gladly.
Rishi may have been on multiple teams. You just build multiple robots in a season and then bring two of them to the same event and then compete with both robots at the same event. So,
Hey,
So Cole,
some people do one and some people do the other.
yeah, we brought you on the show so you can tell us about any loopholes that you found this year. So to have two
Well,
robots.
you'll have to see at our first event. I've got some spicy things I'm cooking up, but
All right.
we'll
Yeah.
keep it close to the chest
What's
there.
your first event? Niagara? You're at Niagara with everyone else?
Nope, Newmarket.
Oh, you tapped out. You're just like, I can't. I'm not. No
I thought
chance.
that event was like, oh my god.
Ren, are you at Niagara or are you at Centennial that weekend?
no, I'm at Centennial, but I may or may not try to go see playoffs.
That's
from-
what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. Okay, so there we go. Emily, you're emceeing over there, right? One of the
I
MCs game
am.
announcers at Niagara.
Yeah.
Jenica, if you're wondering, Niagara is like the stacked event for Ontario this year.
Is it? Cool.
It's a little scary to
2056
look
is there,
at.
1241 is there, Dave is there, 1114 is there, Big Shift is there.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my gosh, sounds competitive. Sounds fun.
It's gonna be intense. Cole's just gonna be like at home, just chilling.
I'll
It's
be
a week
watching.
2 event too. So
Yeah, or you'll probably be like
I get
refing there or something, right, dude?
Maybe. I
Yeah.
I don't know.
And guess what? I know Jenna's going to be at an event that week because the Robonauts are at an event every week, right?
it's up in the air. So what is this, week 2? I think we're in Arkansas.
Okay. So
Week
you
1,
say
I
up in
think
there,
we're in
are you
Tomball.
actually taking a week off this year?
I think we're taking week 3 off, but my students will correct me in the chat if that's incorrect. So
There we go. All right. 118 students, shout out, checking us out here right there. Oh, biggest birds are at Niagara too?
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, not Niagara. Biggest birds are not Niagara. They're at
Oh, okay.
after Newmarket.
Sorry. Chili P thinks that they're at Niagara. I don't know if you know Chili P. Is that part?
No, it's pretty.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
the other.
All right. Everyone's like, why are these people just talking? Could we please tell us about the game? All right. We are going to talk about Reefscape, but before we talk about Reefscape, let's take a look at how Reefscape is played.
Welcome to the 2025 First Robotics Competition game, Reefscape, presented by Haas. 2 alliances of 3 teams each compete to earn points by harvesting algae, seeding coral on their reef, and returning to their barge to ascend to the ocean's surface. Alliances earn additional rewards for meeting specific scoring thresholds and for cooperating with their opponents. Prior to the start of the match, teams can choose to hang a shallow cage or a deep cage on their barge. Robots start each match at their starting line and may be preloaded with 1 coral. During the first 15 seconds of the match, robots are autonomous and can be programmed to leave the starting line, remove algae from their reef, and place coral on their reef. If all enabled robots on an alliance leave the starting line and score at least 1 coral in auto, the alliance earns the auto ranking point. During the following 2 minutes and 15 seconds of the match, drivers control their robot. Robots can place algae in their net and collect coral from human players at their coral station to place on their reef. Coral placed higher on the reef are worth more points. If an alliance can score enough coral on all 4 levels, they will earn an additional ranking point. Robots can also deliver algae to their processor. Once processed, the algae can be taken by the opposing human player and scored into the net. When 2 algae are delivered to each processor, both alliances earn a co-op point. The co-op point reduces the number of coral needed on the reef to earn the ranking point and influences a team's rank in the tournament. As time runs out, robots race back to their barge to hang on their cage and ascend to the ocean surface. Points are awarded to robots that can hang on a shallow cage, and even more points are awarded to robots that can hang on a deep cage. An alliance that scores enough barge points will earn the barge ranking point. The alliance that earns the most points overall wins the match.
So I have to say, the music and the game animation really slaps this year. I was just like, I was down for that or whatever, you know. It's the water game. Hey, Rishi, water.
Lou. Yeah.
There we go.
Shout out Arjun on the
Ren.
chat for putting that in. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Arjun. Ren. In a few months, that could be you. That could be you with that
That
chant.
could be me.
There you go. You could be
Gotta
part of the
finish that
crew.
AIF first.
Oh yeah.
We're not talking about your AIF today. That's for those know that the additional information form that the University of Waterloo requests on their application, which can add up to 5% to your average. So big time. All right, folks. First impressions. What do you think of this game? Someone go.
I love this game. I'll start. I really enjoy the amount of parallels to past games. So I think it's a fun mashup of like 2023, 2019, and dare I say 2015. But I'm excited to play it.
Hold that 2015 talk because I want to know why you think that.
I've got thoughts.
All right, Rishi.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the little sleepers was 2016 with the Coral RP, because I really like the fact that no matter where you're scoring on the reef, you can contribute to actually getting an RP in this game. Definitely my fun part. But yeah, it was definitely really hectic seeing it for the first time. But after I started to get to know it a little bit better, I think it's much simpler than it looks.
That's a really good one on the RP there, because this year's RP, and we're going to talk about everything, folks, but we're going to jump around 8 million topics. So sorry if this is not cohesive. But yeah, like there's you can really contribute to that RP with low goal scoring, like you did with Team Dave in 2016. Were you on Team Dave that year, or were you on
Yeah,
Beaverworks?
I wasn't.
Okay.
I was on the.
Okay.
That's a team I was never on. But you know, it's
Beaverworks, you
Okay,
and
okay.
what was his name again?
George. It was George. Yeah,
showed
yeah,
up
yeah,
at an event wearing Beaverworks gear with
I did.
clipboards, writing stuff down.
I just put on a gray sweater, but fair enough.
I think you were in the beaver suit one time too.
Rumor has it.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think of the game?
I love it. I thought first time seeing it, it looked really complicated. Like there's a lot of components and there's a lot of different ways to score and a lot of different ways teams can do well, but by focusing on different things, which is it's just really cool. There's so much that you can do.
There is a lot in this game, folks, and I think that's one of the things we're gonna have to talk about. And we had an episode of First Canada Live back in December, which was talking about how to simplify and how to build simple robots. And I want to talk about that throughout the show. With a game this complex, how do you simplify but stay effective? And I think that's really, really important, because I'll say it right now. There are going to be teams who try and do everything in this game and build considerably worse robots because of it. And I'm seeing some teams who are like, yeah, we're just gonna do everything. I'm like, you should not. Like, you should not. But anyways, we got time to talk about that. Cole.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I was pretty surprised the second I saw it. I was like, oh wow, okay. And just like looking at, if you look at like a top-down view of the field, the picture of the field, you look and you only see like, oh, there's not really anything there. But then you actually like look into it, and it's like, oh my God, there's so much happening. There's this, there, there's that, there. You got to do this, and you got to do that, and it's just a lot. And we're gonna see a lot of complicated robots.
Ren, not just you, but as the voice of the students from the youth council and from, just students, what's the vibe from students right now on this game?
From what I can tell, people are like, whoa, that's so much to do. And like, how do we find this niche that we can fill? And how is like just thinking about like what are teams going to want to pick, or how are teams going to get together in alliances to be able to like score the best, just because different robots can fill different niches. And so it'll make really, really cool alliances to see how teams can fit together well and like benefit off of each other's like strengths.
All right. Well, to do that, talking about all the different things, let's take a look at a couple more videos. First, we're going to take a look at the Coral Station. Let's start off with that.
Hi, I'm Fiona. And I'm Liz. This video covers the Coral Station, where robots retrieve coral from their human players. There are 2 coral stations per alliance on the field. They are located on each side of the alliance wall. On the field side, there's an opening that allows the human player to pass coral onto the field safely. Coral slides out from a chute that is sloped at a 35-degree angle from the floor. Coral exits the chute at a little over 3 feet off the ground and can end up in a robot or on the floor. An alliance's human player gives coral to the robots by feeding them into the chute from this side. The chute has slots cut into it to help guide the coral while sliding down in this orientation. But there's also a top opening to allow coral to be entered in this orientation. There's a step stool available at events for human players who want something to stand on when placing game pieces into the field. Human players at the Coral Station should be aware of these kickstands and the coral holder when moving about the area. Each human player station will be staged with half of the coral and any unused preloads. You may notice that there are no safe zones in front of the coral stations. Teams may want to consider the possibility of having an opponent robot defending them while trying to collect coral. Robots can also use the April tag mounted on the field side of the Coral Station wall for field orientation and targeting. See the field layout and markings diagram for exact dimensions and details. Good luck, and we'll see you at the competition. 祝大家好运，我们比赛见。
All right. So I figured out how to turn my camera on. There we go. Coral. This is a different game piece than we've had in a long time, maybe ever. This is unique. It is rigid. It is large. So what are thoughts that people have about coral?
The rigidity is probably the best part. Oh, sorry.
No. Hey, I was gonna agree.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah, you go first, and then I'll go. Actually.
Sure. Yeah, rigidity is probably the best part. I like that it can be consistent. It kind of allows teams to test with it. I think the idea was also that it was going to be readily available, so I think that's definitely a good idea. I know in Canada it's might be a little bit of a different story, but for the most part,
We
yeah,
should talk about that actually, Rajiv, for our Canadian audience today. It is a little bit challenging to find the CPVC in Canadian hardware stores. Some folks have been doing some research, and it seems that CPVC might not adhere to Canadian build code, so it might not be readily available. Some teams have found it marketed as permeable gas PVC for radon expulsion. Oh my goodness, expulsion or whatever. But it's a little bit pricey. So teams, if you're looking for the exact, if you're okay with it not being exact, just go buy some ABS, and you're probably fine. But if you're looking for the exact stuff, talk to Andy Mark and probably get it through that. That's probably your most cost-efficient way to do it. So Cole, when you have a rigid game piece, what's key for intaking?
Well, I think one of the general rules for game pieces is a soft game piece, hard intake, hard game piece, soft intake. You wanna have some sort of flexibility in the operation, and it's definitely not coming from the pipe. So you gotta either be springing it or having some sort of soft rubber or something like that. But you gotta allow some sort of give, because well, something's gotta give. So it's gonna be you.
Yeah, it's the key to intaking in FRC is compliance, and something's got to give right here. And so teams grab out, if your team was around in 2015 and you were trying to pick up totes and garbage cans, those were hard plastic objects as well. So grab all the squish wheels, the Bainbot wheels. Hey, first choice. I didn't mention this in the news updates, but first choice is open round 2, and I think his West Coast Products has like 8 million squishy wheels on there. So go grab all of RC's squishy wheels right now while you can. Get a lot of them, prototype test to figure out what's best. Anyone who tells you they know what's best already doesn't know, because no one really knows. So start experimenting, try it out. Emily, what do you think of coral?
I think it's really interesting because it's definitely, as you said, like a different type of game piece that we haven't had before. At least like my experience with FRC, it's very different than what I've seen. But it adds a nice challenge. Like it adds something that every team's gonna design something a little different to score it, whether and how they pick it up, whether they pick it up from the ground, whether they just do human player station. There's a billion ways to go around it, and I think it's just a really interesting challenge they've thrown in the mix.
So coral, 12 inches long, 4-inch.
11 inches and 7/8.
Thanks, Emily. I'm sure that 1/8 of an inch really
Yeah.
dictated the discussion right there.
Correct him.
And then approximately 4 inches in diameter. It's symmetric in 2 axes, but not 3. So what is the approach for picking this up?
So I guess there's two. I'll just start it off for you, Cole. I think there's like two conversations here. I guess it's because the orientation from the human player station can be different, depending on how you want to load it, but also on the floor that can change quite a bit.
Yeah, when we looked at it from either the station or the floor, the station you sort of have choice in what you want to do, and so you can make your intake what it is. When it's on the ground, it's pretty much chaos. But we did kind of find that if you run into it, it's gonna mostly be flat up against your bumper. So that's the most likely way to pick it up from there. Though it's not necessarily the case that it's always like that. So.
It's one of those things, as someone who's done a lot of game design in the past, I always avoided cylinders as game objects because they look a little bit harder than, because people see a game piece like, oh yeah, you can just pick that up or whatever. And like, like let me grab my First Canada water bottle right here. It's a cylinder. It's like, yeah, you just grab it, and go, and then you like pour or whatever. And like I just moved in like 3 different axes right there with my hand. It's not super straightforward how to do it. So how can teams simplify the challenge of intaking coral?
I think the best way for teams to simplify it is to determine where they're intaking it from, whether they're doing a ground pickup, whether they're just doing human player station, because that's a big strategy that teams are going to choose, whether they don't touch them on the ground at all and only get them from human play stations, whether they only get them from the ground, because it changes the design completely.
So, and then I'll ask you another question, folks. Let's go into it right now. Do you need to pick up coral off the ground?
Mm-mm.
I don't think so. Like it's so accessible because of the it's not very far between the reef and the coral station that I think it's like I thought it was easiest, but I guess we'll see how it plays out just to get to coral from the source or coral station.
While we continue this discussion, Heather, do you want to bring up the field layout for us? Ren, I think that's a really good point of how everything's compressed this year because you are loading from, as you see right here, like let me get out the pen here and go all Tony Romo with the telestrator. Your load is right there. And this is that's the path that you're driving back and forth. So it's not going to get that much closer. So you have access to it in the loading station. But why is relying on the loading station risky this year?
Defense.
Right, because there's
Yes,
no
defense.
protected zone around it. You're protected while scoring this year, but you're not protected while intaking. And it's been a while since we've had a loading station that wasn't protected. I know 2013 had one of the loading stations that wasn't protected. Loading is usually a protected operation. So all of a sudden you go and you're lined up perfectly, and I can just hip check, hip check, hip check. I can just slide right on there or whatever. So that makes it a little bit risky. Now, on the flip side, why might it be okay even if there is defense?
Well, well, you can see there's 2 coral stations and only 1 robot can be on that side of the field.
Correct.
Well, 1
You can
robot
only
from the opposing alliance.
exactly. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, they're going to make a mess over there, and then I'm just going to come down here and hopefully beat the race or whatever. But when acquiring or scoring game pieces, the number one thing to determine the length of your cycle time is not the driving distance. It is how long in the station and how long out of the station. So you have to be able, if you want to rely solely on the station, you have to be able to go in quick and out. You cannot be sitting there waiting because you are a target. Think of 2019 when intake was protected, but scoring wasn't protected. So any team that took more than a split second to score at the rocket was just totally 1073, and then boom, they're just beaten up, beaten up, beaten up. So that's makes it a really, really interesting choice. So I asked the question again, not should you, but do you need to pick up coral on the ground? And we can take the screen down, Heather.
So I don't think you need to. I think the idea that I think the first look at the game, you think that that's probably a place where you want to get game pieces in auto. But one thing that's new this year is that the human players that start, well, in anywhere in the alliance area, can actually, there's no auto line stopping them from essentially entering game pieces during auto. So I think we're going to see basically a huge amount of the autos coming from basically going back and forth from the coral station to the reef and just scoring on the reef.
And we have a video of that we'll be showing in a little bit. That's super, super cool that I'm so pumped up about. But we talked about how there's a lot of things to do in this game. Teams should be looking at all the things to do and figuring out which ones are we not going to do, and making that priority list and ordering them. And so floor pickup of coral is one of those things that you could think about possibly not doing. Like obviously you're going to drive, and obviously you're going to have a way to acquire one of the game pieces. But after that, you got to start thinking about what you want to do. So Anything else specific on coral? We'll talk about scoring coral and everything later, but just more on acquisition of coral. Anything else anyone else wants to say?
Yeah, I'll add to that. So I think something about coral is that when it's damaged, it's still usable, unlike the algae. So the damage tolerance is a little unlike the other game pieces. And another thing to note is if you have a mechanism that requires the PVC on the coral to have a perfect surface finish, that might alter what you want to do. So I would just keep that in mind when you're testing prototypes. Make sure you're, you know, keeping that in mind, I guess is what I would say for coral.
Yeah, I think another thing on coral that I'll say is that there's a lot of videos out there of prototypes of people trying to see how far they can roll the coral out of the driver's station. Just understand that that's going to react differently based on what kind of floor you have in your school, whether you have carpet underneath, whether you have something under the carpet. So I think we saw that in 2023 where cones coming out of this loader behave very differently in different places, and even from event to event, maybe. Yeah, Cole's nodding his head there. I feel like,
Yep, some events have wood underlay and some don't. Some
yeah.
masonite, some other ones don't.
Emily, were you going to get in there?
No.
Okay, I was like, okay, she got something here. But so we'll come back to scoring, we'll come to release, but let's talk about algae right now. So first off, there was a team update today, and the team update is just to let teams know there is some variance in the algae that teams have received, some size variance, some compression variance, which happens with inflatables, but there's also some surface difference where some teams have wavy patterns and some teams have straight lines. And so there is some variance with the algae, and maybe we could talk about that with the things that we need to know. But what are people's thought on algae as a game piece?
They're huge. I
Yeah, they're
like
big.
we like I think I both seeing the coral and algae, they were both way bigger than how I pictured in my head. But the first time I held it, I was like, oh my gosh, this has to go into my robot somehow if I want to do this.
It's sorry, I'm a lip balm fiend, just gotta put it on. Let me put it on right there. 16 inches. 16 or 15.5 to 16.5. I want to stay precise before Emily comes at me again. But that's massive, So how big were the balls in 2022, folks? Anyone remember? 10?
That I don't know.
10 or 12, I think.
Yeah, so that's
Sounds about right.
significant. That's a significant difference right there. And 2019,
I think it was
They're
some
13 inches.
yeah,
13
somewhere in between
inches.
there.
Okay, Cole's got that one right there. So this is aside from like the gigantic balls we've had in like 2004 and 2014 and 2008.
Yeah.
The 2008 ball, do you actually know how big it was? I'll tell
Yes.
you. How big was it?
Oh, by size, I just know it's like we have a giant one at OP, and it's like
40
honestly,
inches.
yeah.
40 inches.
Oh my
I'll never
gosh.
remember one time. So we were getting ready to go to 11:14's practice field. I was like, okay, like, hey, bring the ball. And like, okay, we're just gonna pump it up first. And then I was like, what? And then I didn't really process it. Right. I come back, I'm like, okay, we got a problem, Carson. It's like, we can't fit the ball through the door because we pumped it up already. It's 40 inches.
Yeah.
Our first practice was like delayed, but I was like, you
I think a
morons. Yeah.
standard door is like 30, so
30,
yeah.
yeah. So 40 inches, that is freaking massive. Anyways, but 16 inches, they are big. Who has played with one in their hands? Of all of you? How do they bounce?
A lot.
High.
A lot.
Yeah,
Well,
they are very bouncy. So when it comes to intaking these, Cole, going back to the rule of thumb that you kind of gave us earlier, how would you try and intake something like this?
Yeah, I mean something like this. You like if you held like hopefully you guys are able to get the ball and feel the ball. It does compress quite a bit. I don't know if that's just our version of the ball, but it does compress quite a bit. So you can have sort of a static intake and just have your two fork arms with wheels and pretty much get away with that depending on how much torque you're putting on the wheels. But I think what's important to know about the balls is that they bounce and that they roll and they are like a chaotic game piece. So if you think that it's just going to be as simple as driving up to it and grabbing it, I wouldn't be so sure because if you miss just by a little bit, that ball's bouncing off down the field, right? So
And so what's a good strategy for your intake to ensure that balls don't roll away?
well, I look at something like I mean, my first year was 2014 or in 2014, and what you did that year was you mostly held it from the top. And so if you're having friction from the surface from the carpet and you're applying pressure on the top, then it's not really going to roll anywhere. But there's other ways you can do it too. So
One of my favorite strategies is I like to overgear every freaking intake and just make the intake roller go super fast. And just, that kind of, when you intake the ball, you hear it go, whoop. I want to hear that,
Mhm.
whoop. Like, I don't know who remember, like Rich, you might remember 1114's 2014 robot when the human player would toss it and
Yeah.
just, whoop. It just like,
It suck it
where
up,
did
yeah.
where did that ball go? It just like annihilated it. So,
It-
yeah. And this ball has the characteristics where it will get annihilated just like that. Yeah, you can really suck this algae. It's tight right there. Hey, we got a question in chat. Wait, so we can have a robot stealing the other team's coral and hitting their bots? Yes, you
Yes.
can. And folks, remember, First Can Live, we got an audience of veterans and rookies. And for our rookies who are new to this sphere, defense is allowed in the first robotics competition. And so this year you can have one robot go down to the other end of the field and interact with the other teams by knocking their coral around, knocking the robots around, knocking their algae. Now they can't remove coral from the reef. They can't be interacting with the reef like that. They can't be interacting with the cages, but there's a lot they can do. So
they can remove algae.
they can
Yeah.
remove algae. But
Mhm.
to Saksham underscore KO8 who asked that question, take a deep dive through this game manual. There is a lot of things in there that will tell you about how this game is played. But defense is definitely a big part of things.
Don't do it in
Uh,
auto.
Yeah.
don't do it in auto.
Yeah.
Hey, Emily, what was your first impression when you saw the algae?
Um, on it, first impression, it reminded me of the 2019 cargo, and
Yeah.
still does kind of, because it's just they're kind of similar in size. The cargo is a little smaller, but they're kind of similar in size. Um, I think my first impression was how interesting, because it's not a required game piece. Like, you don't have to score it to do well in this game. You need to remove it from the reef to be able to score coral, but it's sort of a game piece that some teams may not need to touch, which I think is an interesting piece.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about coral and algae. Let's take a look at how these two are scored. So first of all, we're going to take a look at the reef.
Hi, I'm Fiona. And I'm Liz. This video covers the goal known as the reef. There are two reefs on the field, one for the Red Alliance and one for the Blue Alliance. The reef is where robots can retrieve the algae and score coral while protected. Coral can be scored on the reef from all 6 sides and at 4 distinct levels: Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, and Level 4. At several of the levels, coral will need to be placed in a unique orientation. At Level 1, or L1, robots place the coral in a trough-like structure. While coral orientation is not critical to score in L1, you may want to be mindful of placement to leave the most space for future game pieces to be added. All 6 sides of the reef share a single L1 trough that is continuous around the structure. The height of the base is approximately 18 inches tall and is sloped towards the outside of the reef. Notice that when a coral is placed into L1, it rolls away from the center. If you want to maximize the number of game pieces in this level, you will likely need to place the next game piece higher and further away from your robot, or push the other one out of the way. Coral can be scored on levels 2, 3, and 4 by placing them on these purple pipes called branches. Notice that coral scored at L2 and L3 are angled, and coral scored on L4 are vertical. At the tallest point, L2 and L3 are roughly 32 inches and 48 inches from the ground, respectively. L4 is approximately 72 inches off the ground. Be sure to look at the game manual for specifics on these dimensions. Teams should be aware that the tip of the branches are recessed at different dimensions from the base and should take this into account while designing their robot. The reef has an April tag on its base structure attached to the front of L1. Teams will need to be intentional with camera placement to best utilize these April tags. See the field layout and markings diagram for exact dimensions and details. To start the match, the reef will have 6 algae placed on the branches, with 1 on every face. See the game manual for exact details on how the field is reset between matches. Coral scored on the reef will not be counted if they are touching a robot or an algae at the end of the match. So make sure to clear the algae off the reef before scoring too close to them. Both the quantity and location where the coral is scored on the reef will determine whether teams achieve the coral ranking point. Teams should familiarize themselves with the ranking point system in Reefscape. Details on how to earn ranking points in the match can be found in our Alliance Station field tour video and in the manual. Good luck, and we'll see you at the competition. Mucha suerte y nos vemos en la competencia.
All right. I think we can skip the processor video. The processor is just literally a hole in the wall. You can just stuff algae in there. But let's talk about scoring. What are the challenges for the different levels of coral? So maybe let's start at the top, level 4. What's the big challenge here?
6 feet off the ground.
It's high. It is high. Robot's starting height this year, 3'6". So you've got to get up there. 2-stage or 3-stage elevator to get to level 4, folks.
It's close. It's right on the edge, depending on what your manipulator is.
Yeah, you can get it done in 2 if you figure out the geometry, but definitely. Also, the orientation's a lot different than 3 and 2, and I think it's surprisingly easy to miss just because of the way you look at it. It's really hard to know if you're actually over the pole.
Rishi, I think you hit on it with the orientations being different. If you think of some of our past elevator games, like 2019, the Rocket, it's just, you go up to the 3 different levels. Think of 2011 with Logo Motion, you go up to the 3 different levels. You think of Rack and Roll 2007, you go up to the 3 different levels. So 3 different levels of scoring has been normal, but this one is like you're on or you're, so it's different like that. It's challenging. What about level 1?
Well, something that I've seen is that teams that even though the different orientation for 2, 3, and 4s, you can still sometimes if you find a way, if you get the right angle, wherever way you hit it, it'll get onto those 3. But when you try to use it for the trough or level 1, it just kind of bounces, and it's kind of like a gamble whether or not it's actually going to land there. Especially for trying to really fill it up with getting 2 or 3 in one little section, you have to kind of think differently for how to design a mechanism to put it there.
I'm making sure my water bottle's sealed before I start doing stuff, before I spill water all over myself or my laptop or whatever. But also, so level 4, you're going like this. Level 3 and 2, you're going like this. But level 1, you gotta go like this. It's a total different orientation. Now, I don't know. Has anyone figured out a way to go like this into level 1 and drop it in there?
I'm sure it's possible, but I think it's
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah. So you can't, before it would be your ability to score on different levels was determined by whether your elevator could reach the levels. But this year's game, it's a little bit more than that. And so I think, again, when we talk about all the different things to do in the game, you need to make decisions about level 1, 2, 3, 4 separately. Maybe you can combine 2 and 3, but I think it's separate and distinct. And then the point values. Who wants to go over the point values for levels 1 through 4, both in auto and teleop?
Polyop's 2, 3, 4, 5 going up.
And auto?
Auto, I believe, is 3, 4, 6, 7.
So there's a little bit of a jump.
Yeah.
Sorry, Emily, you think it's
Isn't
different?
it 5, 7? Maybe I misread.
No, it's levels 4 and 3, I believe, are
sorry.
a 2-point bonus, and then 1 and 2 are a 1-point bonus.
So that gives extra value to 3 and 4. So my question to you all, when it comes to coral, if you are doing coral, because again, you don't have to do everything in this game, where do you want to score?
4.
4?
Right at the top.
Just 4?
Well,
Ideally.
I
You're
mean,
gonna-
until you run out of spots.
You're gonna have to score everywhere. I would caution teams against going straight to 4 if that's not in your it's one of those you don't have to do everything things. I would if I'm doing alliance selection, I'll take a robot that's more consistent with 2 and 3 than can do 4 every once in a while.
So, but here's what's twisty: the ranking point. So with the rocket, the ranking point was fill a rocket, right? Was that what it was? Yeah. And so So I guess it's similar to a certain degree. Maybe it's not as twisty in that respect, but you've got to get 5 coral on all 4 levels unless you've co-opted. So it's like if you were a level specialist, relied on partners, which might be fine, but I don't know. Like this is interesting here. Someone said before it fills up, what do we think the chances of levels filling up are in this game?
I would say at later in the season, pretty high. And then I think that's where my it's like 2015 came into play because I think the highest gameplay will have the best team scoring algae, and because there's a finite amount of them, it's going to be like a can grab again, where they're going to start filling out the entire reef, and then it's going to be who can do algae the best and the fastest, and that's my opinion on prediction what Einstein's going to look like. But my hot take is that algae is the most important piece on the field later in the game. Early, it's like, coral, you're going to need it abundant. The points are there. It's high, but later levels, I think algae is a sleeper. I think people
So
are
you,
sleeping on it.
so you're thinking that the reef is going to fill the 60 approximate 60 spots. We know there's 36 for sure spots, and then at least 24 spots low. So you think the 60 spots are going to fill?
I think much later in the season or first couple weeks, no,
No,
but
yeah.
maybe a chance, yeah.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to fill in order for it to be worth it to start doing algae, right? When you get to
Right.
the low levels, especially the trough, you're only getting 2 per ball scored, whereas you could be potentially getting 4 or 6. But yeah.
But and algae is finite as well in this game. There's only 18 of them. And if both alliances are kind of playing this, that's 9. That'll go quick up there or whatever. So it's wild at the high end at how much scoring is happening. Because like what we've seen in FRC over the last few years, like the cycle rule of 1, 2, 4, 8 kind of shifted to 1, 2, 5, 10 or whatever. But like the bottom end hasn't really gone up as much. And so I caution teams about worrying too much about these super high-end strategies because it's probably not going to impact most teams. But for the teams who are in that world of trying to, it's like it's almost like there's 3 different games being played here. You know what I'm saying? And it's it's a lot. It's interesting right there, but I think that kind of tied it. So let's talk a little bit about coral scoring, coral scoring, algae scoring. Let's talk a little bit about algae scoring. Cole, what are the dynamics of scoring algae this year?
Well, algae's a little bit weird this year, especially with just starting off like where it is. All the algae is on the field right away, and interestingly, none of it's touching the ground. So you either have to pick it up off of the little pieces of coral. That's might be pretty easy, but or taking it off of the reef. And then what you do with it is you can either put it in the processor for 6 points or shoot it into the net for 4 points. But there's a little bit of an asterisk on that 6 points because something that's maybe a little bit bare that teams might not know is that you're actually giving it to your opponent. So you get the 6 points, but your opponent's human player gets to throw it into the net for 4 points. So when you like balance that out, assuming that they actually get it, then that means you're only actually getting 2 points. So when you look at the trade-off of, hey, should I shoot it into the net myself or should I put it into the processor? You might think it's 6-4, but maybe it's actually 2-4, right?
So in 2019, we had a 2 game piece game, panels and balls, and they were very, very different game pieces. And then you get to Worlds, and like half the teams have an intake that can do both panels and balls, the same intake, the same wheels in the hole sort of thing. Do you think teams are going to find a solution for doing algae and coral with the same intake? Sure.
I think it's definitely possible because people had similar intakes for, I know it's not exactly equivalent, but 2023, like the cones versus the cubes, like they look different. And people still found a way to have the same like end effector. And I've even seen people like just testing out that 2023 end effectors on this year's game pieces, which has been really cool. So I definitely think there's like a world where you can find something that will do both.
I saw an intake, one of the robot in 3 days. I don't know which one because there's 8 million of them and I can't keep them all straight. You know, it's
So many this year.
one of the ones they were celebrating their special day on Monday. It's like they can pinch, use like it's set up for like 5 inches of spacing or 6 inches of spacing, and it can still just pinch the algae, which is 16 inches, and grab it. I don't know how well it's holding it, like if you really shake it or whatever, someone hits it. I think these double intakes are going to be there. I think
Yeah.
it's not necessarily going to be separate. Now, if you have a double intake, that means you're only holding one of them at a time, and the rules allow you to hold one of each. I know there's some chat. Let's talk about that. What about the strategy of the double cycles? People who are saying they're going to grab an algae, grab a coral, and every cycle they're going to try to score one of each. Do we think that's feasible?
I think that one is, it's still early on, so I think it's very up in the air, but usually teams can be more successful if they're focusing on one thing, going back and forth, while like another partner is focusing on like removing the algae from the reef, while another team just focusing on scoring coral on the reef. Because if you're picking up algae, going to score the algae, then coming back and scoring the coral, it can be a lot of steps that take longer to do cycles, which may not benefit down the line.
I'll say I think it makes it a little bit harder because it's the way the field is set up. It's like coral loader, reef, processor. And if it was like, it's not like a simple path, you know what I mean? It's not consistent in that way. But it's just, that's an interesting one that's going to come in here. But I think it's interesting that normally when we bring this group on to talk about these games, everyone kind of agrees. But Jenna right away was like, I think algae is the most important thing. And then Rishi had like a look on his face. So like, and like,
I know.
and no, but like this game, so like last year was a very strategic game. I came out and said, I think this is the most strategic game that we've had. But it flowed in a pattern. And sure, there were different options of like, like we can all cycle or we can pass or we can play defense or whatever. This game is like, and maybe it comes down to it on Einstein and it's just like 6 robots that can do everything. Maybe that's like it always happens in FRC or whatever. I just think there could be some interesting stuff here. And I'm thinking that maybe this one plays like 2013 did, where there was a lot of different archetypes of robots. And then the world champions were, Rishi's team, 1241. Rishi, I think, were you on that team that year or were you
I was
on?
definitely not on that team.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot right there. They won with 3 cyclers. Just 3 robots that no one hung. I mean, they did the low hang, which doesn't even count as a hang. Just pure cyclers. No full court shooting, nothing or whatever. And that ended up being the winning one. But then the alliances that almost won were like these 30-point climbers and full court shooters and everything. I don't know. I think this game, we haven't even talked about Endgame yet.
Yeah, it's
Think about
crazy.
how many things we've talked about in this game and how many discrete discussions. Okay, let's start talking about Endgame. I'm not even going to show the barge video because we just have too much to talk about. Yeah, there's cages, they're hanging, we're underwater. Everything's going there. Ren, when you saw the barge, what were your thoughts?
I screamed a little bit just because I saw how low to the ground it was, and I thought, oh my gosh, is it actually that skinny? And are we actually gonna go that? Because they have a little animation where like the robot just like flips up and it's swinging, and I knew that my face probably was like awestruck and terrified, but I'm really excited to see. Like I've already seen, like of course RI3D, they've been working super hard, but I've already seen teams start to like come up with ideas, and it's so cool to see like what we can do with this like very odd shaped thing.
Emily and Jenna, you two are both from teams that sometimes there's a very, very hard challenge in the game. Have come up with some really cool ways of mastering these challenges over the years. I'm thinking of 2056's level 3 climb in 2019, that nice stilt system that just kind of so smooth and elegant up there. Generally, I don't even know which 118 subsystem to talk about over the years, but maybe like in 2016, the grappling hook hang. I'm not asking for any secret sauce here, but my question is, looking at the deep climb, how hard of a task is this? And when I ask for how hard, related to past tasks, like give me a task that's harder than, and give me a task that it's easier than, to kind of sandwich it in there.
Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
Whoever has an answer first.
I can go first.
Okay.
When I first saw it, truthfully, like I have less experience in the FRC, so I don't have as many games to pull out.
That's Emily's nice way of calling me old. I think that's what's happening here. That's what's happening here. I appreciate being kind, friend.
From the games I've seen and past games, I genuinely think this is one of the hardest climb challenges because one, the cages, they swing. Like the deep cage will swing and move, and not it's not very heavy. So I think it's 17 pounds, so it's not very heavy. So it can very easily swing just by knocking it the wrong way. So it definitely adds a huge challenge. I'm trying to think back because 2019, I remember being on the team at that time and that being such a how do we get up to how do we just climb, because you had to literally walk up steps to get up to that level. I think it's definitely harder than that year. And it's definitely a hard challenge to figure out.
Jenna K, where do you rate the hardness? So maybe because our audience is young, like everyone here, related to the 2022 climb, which people said was one of the hardest end games. Do you think this is harder?
I think it's easier.
Okay.
And I think that took a lot of thinking and prototyping and testing to get there. I think this is I think it's a case of looks hard is easy, in the sense that once you do enough testing, and specifically in physics, focus mostly in the physics of what is happening when you grab onto the cage or manipulate the cage. Where is your center of gravity, and what happens if you maybe twist or you winch or there's a lot of different opportunities to do this successfully. And it's hard to visualize what that looks like without seeing it, right? So I think there's a lot of deep climbs already, which is very cool. It was cool to see some robot in 3 days teams already get that. But that's, yeah, again, maybe a hot take similar to my algae take, but I do think that if you take time to understand the physics of it, it is an obtainable task. It just feels daunting.
I think that a lot of the times, things that would be hot takes in past games aren't as hot in this year because there's just so many different things. There's just so it might seem like it's a niche because it's a 6% idea, which normally would be a hot take, but when you have 16 different things, everything's going to be a 6% idea. It's
so they're lukewarm takes in that case.
maybe we'll have to get the thermometer in there.
Sure, yeah.
Deep climb worth 12 points. Barge ranking point worth 14. That's powerful. And if, like Jenna says, if it's easier than people think, wait a second, then we have an easy ranking point. This is going to segue into our next topic. Actually, before we go to our next topic, oh my goodness, we got to thank our sponsors here. So we're going to take a moment. We'll be back after a word from one of our sponsors, Centerline. I don't know why my camera's being so delayed today. There we go. All right, folks. There's a lot going on here. Hey, folks, this was planned to be an hour and 15-minute show. We're gonna run late. We just got a lot to talk about. If any of our guests need to leave, you can leave. It's okay. Producers, I'm really sorry for the 15 minutes. Julia, I owe you. Thank you. Okay, but let's make sure at least if we take the extra time, we get through everything. So we were talking about how difficult that barge ranking point may turn out to be. But Emily and I were chatting on the weekend and about how different this game is because there's 6 RP in the game, right, Emily?
Yeah, from my experience, there's only ever been 4 RP. So 6 RP with 3 of the RPs coming from winning the match feels like such a big change, and there could be a lot of different strategies around that too.
So I want to give the world of sports tiebreakers person's insight into why this matters. And so, like, some of you don't know, like, one of the things that I do on the side is I calculate tiebreakers for the NFL and I send them off to them every year and be like, here, I think these are what your tiebreakers are for this year. I think this is how it breaks down or whatever. And they're like, yes, this makes sense, Karthik. Or most years they just don't even respond. Or then some years they say, oh, the user's right. We're going to send it out to the whole world or whatever. So I have a lot of time in this space. Before, at a district event, you play 12 qualifying matches. There was a possibility of 48 ranking points. But like some people would be like, oh, I'm in a regional system. We only play 8 matches, and the rankings are always weird. And champs, the rankings are always weird because we only play 10 matches. Because they had 32 or 40 ranking points available to be distributed. We're now distributing 72 ranking points, 6 times 12. That's a lot. That means there are going to be less ties. The NFL went from a 16 game to a 17 game season. And suddenly their 17th game of the season this past weekend meant very little because almost all the ties were already broken. By having more ranking points available, there are going to be less ties. What does that make less valuable? What's the first tiebreaker? Cooperation.
Competition.
But now, so say it was a normal 4RP game, and say we just, hey, why don't we just double everything? So then it's 4 points for a win, 2 points for a tie, and 2 points for each ranking point. And now there's 96 ranking points. Well, you'd be like, wait a second, I understand how math works. Just by making the number bigger doesn't do it. There actually has to be a distribution. But many people are saying the auto ranking point is easy, correct? Because it's just 3 teams to move, 1 thing scored. And if the Reef ranking point follows Jenna's theory, that barge, deep climb, suddenly we have 2 ranking points that are kind of easy. And the win became 3, but it was awarded that. It's discrete. So maybe this isn't going to have as much impact. See how twisty it is? We don't know. What do we know? Nothing. It's
All about
amazing.
winning.
This is what I love about this
Yeah.
point in the season, though. Sorry, Rishi, huge point. What? Say it right there.
Yeah, it's just all about winning. So I think like if the auto RP is something that you expect in, let's say, like 90% of matches, probably even more potentially, like later in the season, then it's kind of a wash. And then now you have kind of a more weighted system where winning matters a lot more to getting that advantage.
But and so going back, and I forget who it was, maybe it was another Jenna warm take here, but Jenna, you're talking about the reef filling. If the reef is filling, I mean, everyone's getting that ranking point, obviously, because you only need 20 on the reef, not 60. So like, remember champs in 2022 when everyone was getting the ranking point for scoring, whatever it was called, cargo. Was it called cargo that year?
Power
Luggage.
cell?
Yes.
Power cells.
They all blend together when you do this for so long.
Honestly.
I'm pretty sure it's cargo because
Cargo?
2022 was my first year. Yeah.
Okay.
Was it? I don't
Well, see, Ren, you have the advantage. You can't be confused by past games, because you
But
just
2019 was cargo. Okay,
I think they were
2019 was
both.
cargo.
I
I
think
thought it was
2019
power
was
cells.
cargo. I thought.
We
It was
Yeah, I
definitely-
think
React, right?
We were definitely
So
capturing
it
the
was
tower.
someone in the chat. Can you? Can you
Yeah,
tell us the
chat,
right
can you
answer?
tell us?
Chat,
Tell
can
us,
you
please?
type down below?
Hey, Sidoti, can you let us know? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Arjun says 2022 was cargo, airplane game. Yeah, that's why I thought it was luggage. But I was like, oh yeah, you're throwing your luggage
right.
into
Let's
the
go.
thing.
Yay.
2019 was also cargo, but cool space cargo.
Yep.
True.
Arjun,
Yeah.
shout out. Okay, now everyone. Okay, Sidoti's in there now too. Everyone's got us. Everyone's hooked us up. Thank you, folks, right there. Shout out to the best chat in the world, everyone. I don't know what I was talking about anymore. I got distracted.
Well, the dynamic of like ranking points is certainly much different this year because you have more ranking points available. It means that each individual extra ranking point task is actually worth less. Like
Yes.
last year, if you
It is, yeah.
didn't do one of the ranking points, you were at 3 out of 4. This year, if you don't do one of them, you're at 5 out of 6. So you're actually ranking much higher, right? So you can choose to not do one of those tasks and still sort of be pretty high up there. And I also want to go back to the point of the coral ranking point. You know, First has the ability to change the requirement, and they've done so in the past. They did so last year twice, and I would not be surprised if before week 1 there might be a change. I don't know. I don't know if they can do that before week 1, but certainly before DCMP, we'll see a change. I guarantee it.
Teams at the high end don't cease to amaze me with what they can accomplish, and teams also don't cease to amaze me by biting off more than they can chew. So it's just going to be this weird sort of mix. It's interesting here. All right. I wanted to talk about autonomous strategies, but guess what? Autonomous strategies are being cut. Score lots of things. Put them somewhere, folks.
True.
Right forward.
That's
wanna-
the strategy. Good strategy.
I want to go
Drive.
strategic. I want to go strategic design. I want to talk about some design trade-offs specifically. Tank versus swerve.
Swerve.
It's swerve. It's a
Swerve.
again and again and again.
Does
Poor
anyone
tank.
know? Does anyone know how many teams in first did swerve last season?
70%.
Approximately
That's-
70%.
I knew that too, but I kind of cheated.
I put
read
it. I put it in the show doc. Yeah.
I
Jenna,
read
you
the
should know.
notes.
You did all the research, Jenna.
I know we did the data.
That was me and you
Yeah.
doing all the data last year.
I know. I should know. My brain is just full of other strategies right now. Do you remember the number?
It was like 72.
Okay.
Sorry, which number were you asking?
Just the amount of robots. I mean, the number of
14.
robots, not the percent.
Oh, so
I guess you could
yeah, like
do the math.
2100-ish, you know.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Here's the deal, folks. At the championship event last year, 94-ish% of the robots were swerve. In the playoffs, there were
What's
two
two?
tank drive robots in the playoffs. It is hard to compete at the high. Here, this is First Canada Live. We are honest. We're not going to sell you something that's not true. It probably will be impossible to make the playoffs at the championship this year without swerve. That being said, if you don't have the ability to do swerve and you try, you're not even going to get close to the championship. There were a lot of bad swerve bots last year. You can still be very, very good with tank. You can still be very, very good because, hey, the 9098 recipe is out there of building a really simple robot. And this year's game is set for it. And we're going to show Kitbot in a bit, and we're going to see how this can be done. But I do think that swerve is more and more of a thing, especially because of the circular nature of the reef and going around the field. All right. Coral versus algae. Who would like to speak? Jenna K has already said algae is the most important part of the game. Emily Forster has a thought because I can tell.
I think coral should be a priority. Or I think there are two thoughts here, and there'll be two kind of types of teams. Some teams that will focus priority like mainly on coral, some that will focus mainly on algae, and both teams will be important. For the ranking point, coral is important because algae doesn't do anything for a ranking point. So if you want to focus on ranking points, I think coral would be the best course of action.
How high is the barge? Or the top of the barge, the net that you're putting the algae
I
in?
think it was 8.5 feet. Something
8.5
like
feet.
Mhm.
So, like, even if you designed a robot to score coral on the top level, which is 6 feet, you still got more height to go. So it's not like it's just like because I think we agree that some people are going to figure out the double intake, right? If they haven't figured it out already, but you still have to get it up there. That's interesting.
And it's also a net up there, so it could bounce back if you
Yeah.
if it goes in the wrong way.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Randy,
just-
you're trying to say?
Just picking back off what Emily just said, algae is big, and like I think someone showed me a photo of just like a simulation of just algae in the barge that was scored. So once you get to a certain threshold, if you're trying to shoot it up there, it's so easy, as we see it's super bouncy, for it just to like bounce against the net or against another ball and just drop onto the floor for some other team to grab.
There's so many decisions in this game. We talked about coral algae and processor versus algae in the barge, and you get more points by putting it in the barge. Coral high, we talked about ground intake. I would like to talk about the differences between qualification matches and playoff matches. Because with 6 ranking points, obviously getting at least 14 barge points is incentivized. And spreading your coral around the reef is incentivized or on the different levels. So how will playoffs play differently?
Well, I think the processor becomes a lot less valuable in a lot of situations. That's a big one because you don't need that RP thing. I think early game, yeah, Coral's probably going to be a huge deal with just getting as many points as possible. But and I think the poor shallow hang might get left behind a lot of the time, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So one thing I guess we didn't talk about with the barge was you get to pick what you put out there. And if everyone wants to do the deep hang, it kind of you've got like an obstacle for yourself. But I guess here's a question: how often do you think teams are crossing the field?
Not frequently.
Twice.
Yeah,
Twice,
once to
yeah.
do defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Okay,
really want your algae.
so maybe then the barge as obstacles isn't as big of a deal.
And
Oh,
you can fit between them. A full 30 by 30 robot fits between.
Okay, yeah. If you're building a 30 by 30 fridge, some people really like that style.
I'm afraid of them swinging and just taking out the top of the
Yeah.
robot.
Did you see that one video of the Kitbot like running through it and then it just like flops all over the place? Okay, I will send it to
Scary.
y'all
It's
later. But it was
scary,
I
yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, that's gonna be causing some
I'm-
carnage.
I'm just gonna say this whole barge thing, cage thing, it's been done before. Cole, tell me what happened at the first ever FRC event you went to at the opening ceremony.
Uh, well, it wasn't a cage, but it was definitely something swinging. That
There was a
was
truss in the middle of the field that year, and we hung a giant ball from that year, and then I ran and jumped on it like Miley Cyrus, and swung around. It was a good time. It's clearly where they got the idea for this from, right? Must be. Yeah. Not from Miley herself, Saying. Okay. Few people have touched on this about how the game, early season, late season, how does this game evolve as we get to Ontario Provincial Championship, or to be inclusive, Virginia Texas State Championship, or
Woo!
and then obviously the first championship in Houston. How's this game evolving?
So I think I have to clarify because when Jenna said that it was the most important game piece, she did say later in the season, and I
Mhm.
agree with that 100%. So I think once you start to get to the provincial championship level, the idea of like removing the algae and scoring coral and then putting the algae somewhere like the net, let's say, is going to be very important. And I think there's like this kind of chicken game where it's you fill
Mhm.
your goal a lot and you get it really high, but then when your goal gets full, now if I'm against you, I can put it in my processor, and your human players are gonna have a problem throwing it into the goal. And so mine's now worth 6 and yours worth 4. So I think the algae's definitely gonna be like this weird kind of trade-off chess
Yeah.
game thing later in the season. And then yeah, obviously a plethora of coral getting scored.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like how Steamworks evolved, where it was all gears, and then once everyone filled up the gears, it was like, oh, the thing that makes you win is the balls, right? So once you're done, that's it. And I also think that as the season goes on, if I don't know what the meta will be for defense robots, but I do think if there's a defense robot, they're also cycling just on the other side of the field.
Mhm. Exactly.
All right, folks. As we run down of time, and I just want to try and get through everything. I think we probably have talked a little bit too much about the high end in this, and we need to talk
Sorry.
about that's hey, it's all good. We got a whole show next week for the middle,
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
want to show off Team 9408's version of the kitbot. So they took the kitbot and they tossed it on a swerve drive, and they
It
made it
cooks.
autonomous mode. And so, Julia, can you please play the kitbot auto video for us?
Cool.
You can leave your cameras on, folks, so everyone can see your reactions as we watch this. It's a short video.
Oh my gosh, I've seen this. I love it.
Okay, first off, that's dope. But those cycles are short.
Yep.
Those cycles are short. And so we could see that's auto. That's auto 4.
Man.
We could see a lot of coral being scored. And normally I'm the one who's super skeptical about high scores. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And let me tell you this. The average scores are not going to be as high as everyone's thinking. Everyone's like, when we're talking about people averaging 20 corals, stop. Because averages include everything. Average, it's not like, oh yeah, my average was this except for the match where someone played defense on me and except for the match where yeah, that's not how averages work. Average is everything. But the max that some teams are going to be putting up. Like in 2019, the max cycles I saw a team do, where I saw 11-14 do 18. And that's 18 true, not including the ones that they boxed in. That was them in 1241 at Ontario Provincial Champs. They didn't have Swerve. They didn't have Krakens. And that match was undefended completely. Like, trust me, like 11-14 got defended at champs and they scored like 2. It was a great experience, right, Emily? That was fun. Remember that match? Yeah, really fun. Yeah, I know. But that's how average. But like, there's going to be some peaks for teams where if someone doesn't send a defender out there and your alliance does send a defender to the other side of the field, and you just have 2 robots with space, I think people are going to cook.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
It's going to be fast. It's going to be chaotic. There's going to be algae bouncing everywhere. There's going to be one defender. And then I would assume people are going to be running between the station and the reef. And then someone comes to defend. They're going to pull off and do algae. Like, it's going to be all over the place.
Okay. All right. I want to blaze through some questions from chat because chat has been great today. So I really want to try and address their questions. Which component of the game seems the most challenging at first glance? Rapid fire. Someone just answer this. Most challenging game piece.
At first glance, deep cage.
Deep cage. Okay. There you go. What do you think about Rishi, I'll give you this question. What do you think about a robot that does L1 to L3, processor, deep climb, versus a robot that does L1 to L4 plus deep climb plus no algae? And unmute, buddy.
I don't even know when I muted, but yeah, the second one's crazy. But the first one, I think it plays
So,
the role of like a 5 out of
you're
6
the
RP.
you're the scouting captain. Which one are you picking?
It depends how many coral, but honestly, number 2.
Number 2. Okay. Okay, Rishi. All right, this is a fun one. Argument for the value of the processor. Expected value, this is how we start, of processor scoring is an increasing function, while expected value of net scoring is a decreasing function. Yes, because it's harder for the human player to make their shot when the net is fuller. Any guesses on the number of algae at which the expected values break even?
It's like 5 or 4 or something. It's somewhere around there where it starts to get a little cleaner.
I believe this is from my friend from the Girls of Steel in Pittsburgh, the Carnegie Mellon Academy or whatever.
I wrote this in a chat today. Basically, a very similar thing, but without all the like math terminology. So
this is great. The pure mathies are all getting together right here. Cole, what happens when a human player misses an algae that was scored in the processor? Can it be rescored?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's live for the field and everything. All right. Time's running down. Jenna K, what can you tell us about the Everybot?
It can fit into many roles and strategies on an alliance. We are shooting for the least amount of degrees of freedom. I think every simple yet competitive robot should shoot for that. I don't know what that looks like yet. We're still finagling, but we're excited about this one for sure.
So back here next week, same bad time, same bad channel. We're going to reveal the Everybot.
You got it. I can't wait.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Hey, folks, we want to point some teams to some resources. I'm going to tell you the best resources at first right now. There are 4 teams on the Open Alliance who are sharing their entire season that are just freaking fantastic. Team 3847 Spectrum. They've already put out some priority lists and some prototype videos. 4481, the Rembrandts from Amsterdam. They've put out, as of last night, 45 YouTube videos of prototypes already on their channel, and they are really, really informative. 6328 Mechanical Advantage. They've been to Einstein like the last 3 years, 4 years. That's like they're the new citrus circuits almost, citrus circuits
Ooh.
East Coast, but everything is out there that they're posting. And then my favorite build blog from last year, one that a lot of people don't talk about as much, 3467. Oh, what's their name? 3467. Rishi, help me out.
Wind and wind up, is that?
Wyndham Windup. Wyndham
Yeah.
Windup.
Knockout orange.
Yeah. And so what I love about Wyndham Windup is they are so real on their build blog. If something doesn't work, they'll tell you. And they'll say, yeah, we tried this design and it's just not working or whatever. So we got to go back to square one. And I love that, honestly, because it's important for people in the community to realize the best teams are constantly failing. So if you're like, oh man, my robot doesn't work, and oh, it's so frustrating. Someone just posted on Insta this robot that does 4 in auto, and we're not even moving or whatever. Trust me, everyone else is struggling too. You are not alone. Okay. And so those are great build blogs. Those are great resources. All right, folks, it's 8:30. We are back next week to talk about the Everybot. Jenna K will be here. Brandon will be here. Who else are you bringing with you?
It's just
Ethan?
us two. No,
Just-
just me and Brandon.
All right, that's awesome. Power couple right there. We're just gonna rock that one out. We're gonna be talking like that. Folks, this is a long season. I think the most important thing for you all to remember is it's a journey. And the most important part of this journey is getting to the end intact. Take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, get lots of rest. You are on a team. Every single one of you is on a team. Some of you may be the captain, the president, or whatever, and you might feel this is all on me. It's all on me. It's not. And if it really does feel like it's all on you, reach out to a mentor on your team, maybe a First Canada senior mentor or someone in the community. Reach out for some support because it shouldn't be all be on you. We're all here for each other. This is going to be an amazing season. Everyone love this game. Give me a thumbs up if you love this game. Reefscape, it's good. You got 2 thumbs up. You got 2 thumbs up. Everything's good. This is great. This is going to be fabulous. Thank you so much. This is the best crew. I love being on the show. Sorry we couldn't talk more. We could go on forever and ever, but we got to go. So, folks, see you next week. Talking to everyone. Good luck, everyone. Bye.
Sounds great. Bye, y'all.
OHIO.